Hey everybody, what is going on? Heatsoul here with another Master Duel video for y'all. So today we're going to be taking a look at one of the more popular decks right now that's gotten a huge boost in support from just one card, and that is going to be Mathmech. So Mathmech is a deck that's been, particularly Mathmech Circular, this card, has definitely been talked about for quite a while. I've seen people saying like, oh, once this card comes out, like, Mathmech is so much better. Like, Mathmech is an actual deck. It also boosts the power of that Ignister and just some other Cyberse decks in general. And Circular, honestly, like, I knew it was gonna, like, having researched some OCG and even, you know, TCG lists, I knew that Circular was gonna be super impactful and that it was gonna skyrocket the deck, probably up out of Rogue category. I actually don't really know where I would land Mathmech just yet. It's just a couple of days after Circular has been released, but I wouldn't be surprised this ultimately ends up being like a tiered deck, honestly, consistently. I could even see it being tier 2 potentially. Maybe even, I don't know, it's really hard to say right now, like, especially in this particular format, just where Mathmech is going to land. Needless to say, Circular is a huge power boost and is the kind of legacy support I think pretty much every deck in the game is asking for. For those who are unfamiliar somehow, I'm sure you've played against this deck quite a bit in the last few days, but for those who are somehow unfamiliar, who have somehow not played against Mathmechs yet, basically Circular can special itself from hand by foolishing a Mathmech monster, and then when the Mathmech monster is summoned while it's in play, you get to add a Mathmech spell or trap card. So that's obviously insane, especially the fact that sending the Mathmech monster from the deck to the graveyard is actually a cost. It's much like Cherubni, Ebon Angel of the Burning Abyss in that regard. So yeah, extremely powerful card that just completely skyrockets this archetype from, like, not even upper rogue, honestly. Like, before Circular, Mathmech was definitely like a mid, probably even lower rogue deck, but yeah, now with Circular out, I think it's going to go out of rogue and honestly into a tiered category. So how does this deck work? What makes it so good? We'll talk about that here in a moment, but first, real quick, just want to make sure to mention that I do have my Patreon page. If you check out the link in the description, the top link right there should just go straight to it. If you're looking for some more daily Master Duel content outside of what I post here on YouTube, definitely feel free to check that out. You know, over there we've got some previews for upcoming videos on the YouTube channel. We've got games that are exclusive to the Patreon. We have Q&As, and you can have your name featured at our lovely end of video credit sequence. There are also going to be more perks that are going to be added in the future for no additional cost. The cost for the Patreon is just $5 a month, so it's as much as you pay for a booster pack, but for the entire month, and you definitely get a lot more value than a pack full of filler out of it. So yeah, like I said, feel free to check that out in the link, the top link of the description below. But anyway, Mathmech. This deck is honestly pretty ridiculous, especially its Mathmech Superfactorial. This is, or Factorial rather. This is the Tri-Brigade Revolt of this archetype, but this archetype can do a little bit more, honestly, with the Revolt than even Tri-Brigades could. With this card, you can set up on your opponent's turn an onboard disruption for their monsters, you can rip a card from their hand, and you get an Omni Negate out of this one card. Basically, the way that it works is, we're looking for the second effect here, the effect to exceed summon a Mathmech as soon as this card is activated. By pulling 3 level 4 Mathmechs out of your graveyard, you can go into the Laplacian. I'm surely not saying that right. I suck at math, so I'm probably going to get a lot of these math terms wrong. But yeah, you can exceed summon this card during your opponent's turn, and then basically the idea is that you do the first 2 effects. You send a random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard, then you send a monster your opponent controls to the graveyard, leaving Mathmech Diameter as the final material attached to it, because oh, you know what? You actually don't even need the material attached. I just realized that. Like, I thought that this had to be an overlay unit on it in order to get that effect, but no, you can just Omni Negate once per turn. So you could actually even doubly disrupt in the right matchup where you can send a spell or trap card your opponent controls to the graveyard as well. So that's pretty nice. Yeah, it's just a lot of disruption and an Omni Negate, including hand disruption, and the ability to pull cards from your opponent's hand is an exceptionally powerful one. There are some hands, and it's not even that hard, it's a two card combo rather, where you can make a Laplacian on turn 1 and then have another one to follow up on turn 2. So you're ripping 2 cards out of your opponent's hand. That in and of itself is already extraordinarily powerful, but you're also getting these disruptions and again the Diameter Omni Negate as well. So just very powerful what you can do. Now, to be fair, you could have done all that before Circular came out, but Circular, it just sets it up so well, right? Circular itself is one of the 3 level 4 bodies you'll need. It sends a monster from your deck to the graveyard to set up. It's usually going to be Mathmech Sigma. and then it can even add the Superfactorial off its own effects. So Circular really is just the glue that holds this whole strategy together. As far as the other Mathmech cards, like I said, Diameter is a very powerful card. It kind of acts as a debris dragon. When you normal summon it, you can bring back one of your level 4 Cyberse monsters, and then, yeah, any, Mathmech Synchro or Exceeds monster that's that's summoned using this as a material gets a once per turn Omni-Negate effect. It's only during the turn that the card is special summoned, but that's usually all that you need, so, especially given that you can summon this on your opponent's turn as well. As far as the other Mathmech cards, Sigma is a pretty important one, but we still only run 2 copies of it because really the main use of it is just to send it off Circular from the deck to the graveyard. I'd say like 95% of the time this is what you're going to be sending off of Circular. Addition and Subtraction are here to act as additional extenders, but even though all they are extenders, that's still very important, and it's still pretty good as well. Allows for some additional comboing. I'm also using a single copy of Multiplication. This card is really like, I can see myself taking it out altogether, but this second effect here works when it's sent to the graveyard for any reason, so it's not hard sometimes to just dump this Mathmech Multiplication, especially off of like a Circular, and then you can double the attack of whatever monsters in your extra monster zone, and then just kind of like OTK out of nowhere sometimes. So yeah, I'll keep trying a single copy of this. Also, the first effect can be useful for summoning the Geomathmech Final Sigma, but this card in general is like not, I would consider it not needed. You definitely don't need this card for any of like the main Mathmech plays, and it's really just kind of like a late game / win more type of card, or not even necessarily win more, but it's a grind game type of card where once you're out of like all of your regular resources, then it's like, okay, I'll just go into Final Sigma, have a Towers monster, and then try to close out the game with that. But I haven't summoned this yet in all my testing with it, and I would say it's not needed. It's nice to have, but it's not needed. I would say that you do need 2 Alembertains for the grind game and just in general, because this is like the best extra deck monster for this deck. As soon as it's summoned, you get to search for a Mathmech card, and then you contribute it, or any monster really, and that's what makes it so good. You contribute any monster in play to bring back a Mathmech from your hand or graveyard. Again, it's like, the thing about Mathmech, it's so funny, like it was all here, like all the support was here, it just needed Circular to tie it all together. Although, it is, again, it's easy to say, oh, it just needed 1 card, but when your 1 card is as good as Circular, it's pretty phenomenal. Let's see here. This build in particular, I will say, I'm not using like the Decode Talker variant. This is more of like the, I guess you could call it a pure variant, but really the idea of this variant is that you're using a lot of disruption pieces along with Heatsoul. And by using a lot of disruption along with Heatsoul, you get to make effective use of drawing cards during your opponent's turn. This deck often ends on IP Masquerena on turn 1, so Heatsoul is typically what I go into on the opponent's turn there. And since we are playing a deck that needs very little resource to actually put out a full board, we can play like, 3 Imperm and 2 Valor, and of course Seasoned Ash Blossoms. The Ghost Spells, that's one other thing I did want to talk about real quick. Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion in this deck is actually not just a disruption tool, but it's actually insurance. It's almost like another version of Called By as well. Because the Superfactorial is an important card to get off, and it really sucks when your opponent Called By is one of the targets, so Ghost Spell will protect from that, as well as from the odd, like, DD Crow type effect that banishes cards from your graveyard as well. So that's why we have Ghost Spell. If I was just looking for a piece of disruption, I'd probably put in Joel and Lockbird. I think that's more effective in this format of shutting more decks down, but again, the Ghost Spell is not just acting as disruption against certain decks, but also protection against other kinds of effects for our deck as well. So the only thing really, I guess, to mention is Small World, although there's not much to mention. I really like Small World in this deck because Circular is just like the most important card, and we need to open with it ideally every single time. There are plays you can do without Circular, but Circular just makes the plays so much easier. So, like having Small World to have additional ways to get to that. But, alright, now I've spoken my piece about the deck. Let's break it down card by card and then take a look at some gameplay. We're playing 2 Effect Valor, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion, 2 Mathmech Sigma, 2 Mathmech Addition, 2 Mathmech Subtraction, 1 Mathmech Multiplication, 3 Mathmech Diameter, 3 Mathmech Circular, 3 Parallel Exceed, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 3 Cynet Mining, 1 Mathmech Equation, 2 Small World, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and 1 Mathmech Superfactorial. It's going to round out the main deck. Extra deck is 1 Geomathmech Final Sigma, 2 Primathmech Primathmech, rather, Laplacian, 2 Primathmech Alembertain, 1 Link Disciple, 1 Link Devotee, 1 Linguriboh, 1 Cyberse Wicckid, 1 Update Jammer, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Splash Mage, 1 Transcode Talker, 1 Decode Talker Heatsoul, and then finally 1 Accesscoe Talker. And that's going to round out the list. Now let's take a look at some gameplay. Alright, our first duel for the video here is going to be against Sword Soul Tendy, which is definitely the... You know, it's funny, ever since, and I'm sure this is just a like subconscious thing, but I've noticed like a lot of Sword Soul Tendies on ladder ever since I did that meta report where we found that a lot more Sword Soul Tendies were hitting Diamond 1 than just about any other deck. But anyway, opponent's going to get the first turn here. I fortunately opened up with multiple imperms, although I just really need the one to get this Moye here. They did reveal the emergence, so I'm thinking like, yeah, they could still search for a Longyan and potentially have plays here. And I do think that's what's about to happen here. They're going to go for a Chi-Shao anyway. I'm playing on Imperm yet, but they actually just set a card before passing. So, yeah, with this deck, you know, playing against the Sword Souls, got to be wary of this being Blackout. But even if it is, like, I've got the Mathmech Equation and a Parallel Exceed in my hand. Plus, I can begin my play with Linguriboh anyway, so... I actually find myself doing that quite a bit in this deck. Like, I'll start my plays with Linguriboh if I'm going second, because it's really not that hard to do in this deck. You usually are able to have, like, an additional throwaway material for Linguriboh before you go into your, you know, additional plays beyond that. But this face-down card is actually not a trap card. It's called By the Grave, so... Yeah, I was going to go for an access code win here, actually. I was going to use the Splash Mage to bring back this Parallel Exceed, and then use Mathmech Equation to bring back Diameter, which I guess I'll do anyway, but... and then from there I go into Update Jammer and then Access Code. If you've watched any amount of me playing Salamangreat, you know what that's all about. I actually should have brought that back in attack mode now that I think about it. Yeah, there's really no reason not to bring that back in attack mode, but I guess either way I was probably just going to link it away for a Heatsoul here. It's going to be my kind of like alternative line. I'll just Transcode Talker plus Heatsoul. But I did actually draw a Cynet Mining, which makes winning this turn actually possible. Now that I can search the Circular, I can use Circular's effect in order to send the Sigma and summon that. I can't summon Sigma right now because I do have a monster in my extra monster zone, but I can go for Accesscoe Talker here. Oh, but you know what? It's because of the equation. You know what? I just fell into the same mental trap that I did while I was actually playing this game. This is actually a misplay here. This looks like lethal, but it's actually not because of that Mathmech Equation. Or no, sorry, not Mathmech Equation. It was, one of the Mathmech effects. Was it Diameter? One of them says you can only attack with one monster per turn, so I'm only, and of course I attacked with Heatsoul because I'm used to attacking with the lowest monster first, because I'm a Yugi boomer who plays around Gores, even though it's 2023. So yeah, we only get to attack with one monster this turn, so there's definitely a misplay on my part. I mean, it looked like lethal, but it wasn't. So, and I should have attacked with, of course, the access code there. So the opponent is going to get to activate another emergence for a Moye, and they get a triple tactics talent. So things are not looking like super great here, but at the same time, I've got a call by so I can negate their Moye. So even though I did misplay, like, I'm not super concerned about it. I also have Cynet Mining in my hand, so like no matter what happens, I can just search a Circular next turn, and like if you've got a Circular, even if it's the only card you have, like you have plays. You have plays for days actually, so. Now here I've contemplated using the call by on the Vishuda, but I decided not to, because I figured they were probably gonna Vishuda the face down card anyway. You know, call by and Vishuda would be good if they were going to bounce back like the access code or something. Actually, if they put access code back, that's totally fine, because I still have Update Jammer in my extra deck anyway, so. But yeah, I figured they were probably going to target the back row, so I was like, I'll just wait, and then I can use the call by on the Moye in response to the Vishuda. That way, they'll have wasted the Vishuda bounce, and they also don't get Moye's effect. So the other thing, too, of why I'm not super concerned here is that my opponent's not really doing anything to, like, super threaten, like, lethal here or anything. And actually, now that I'm thinking about this, my opponent could have made, I think, a better play than they ultimately ended up making. Definitely better than this Chao Feng that comes out in defense mode. I remember that. I don't know why that Chao Feng came out in defense mode. I don't know why they didn't have Chao Feng run over my Heatsoul. Well, what I was thinking that they could have done is, they could have used this, Cheng Ying to run into my access code, right? And then when it would be destroyed, Oh no, it's only by card effect, so not by battle. Alright, so they can't run into it with battle. Never mind, that solves my question. So yeah, even though, you know, they do have a very good board, they still can't run over my access code. And the fact that I get a circular on top of that, like, it's just over at this point. Yeah, I definitely shouldn't have gone, obviously, into Accesscoe during my last turn, because I can only attack with one monster. I should have just left it as a Transcode Talker, but here we actually get to see the multiplication in action. And it did actually, like, sort of matter there. Like, I didn't have super easy access to lethal necessarily, but circular sending multiplication, as you can see, that jetted my access code well above enough attack points to even, you know, even if my opponent was at 8,000, I could have ended them in one shot right there. So, yeah, that just kind of shows off, like, a lot of the power of Mathmech, and particularly circular. Like, if you have circular, you have options. Just, the card is so good, but you don't need me to tell you that. But let's take a look at the next game. Alright, so this one's going to be against an Unchained Labyrinth deck. So a lot of disruption going to be happening from the opponent here. Although one thing I've noticed, honestly more from playing against this deck even than playing with it, is that this deck is very, very much capable of playing through disruption. A lot of the time. Like, when I was playing Sky Strikers, you know, obviously because it was the day that Circular came out, I ran into a lot of Mathmech decks, and I found, even as a Sky Striker with, like, multiple responses in hand, they would often just, like, keep playing through. Like, I'm not exaggerating. There was one game I had a Sky Striker where I played Valor, Ash, and Imperm on the Mathmech opponent, and they still ended with a very solid board, so... Alright, so here I have the Cynet Mining for the Circular and a Mathmech Addition in my hand. So when you have access to both these cards, there's actually a fair bit you can do, more than if you just had Circular. I actually do plan on making a combo guide from this deck. I want to get a tiny bit more practice in with it, but I don't feel like you need that much more. Once you learn, like, this is one of those combo decks where once you learn a core combo line, then all the other combos will make a lot more sense. So, I don't think the learning curve is too steep, but the ceiling is pretty, you know, it's got a lot of room for growth in that regard. So, the ceiling's pretty high there. But regardless, I think it'll be fairly soon. It'll probably be, honestly, the next day when the combo guide comes out. I just, you know, in real time, in the time that I'm recording this, I just want a little bit more practice before I put out that combo guide there. So, because we have the Parallel Exceeds, we can actually use those to go into Alembertain. Parallel Exceed is very, very good in this deck. In any other deck I've played Parallel Exceed, it's normally just kind of like a side note, right? Like, oh, you can play Parallel Exceed, and sometimes you can go into, like, Baguska, right? I'm thinking of, like, Salamander Greens here. But in this deck, we have Primathmech Alembertain, so we can make that with the Parallel Exceed. And you don't need to use Mathmech cards to, like, you know, make Alembertain or give it any of its effects or anything like that. So, I did actually misplay a little bit here. I could have actually made a Laplacian here, and ripped a card from my opponent's hand on turn 1, as well as had the follow-up Superfactorial to do it on turn 2. But, yeah, no, I just didn't quite play it right. This is definitely me still learning the deck at this point, so... I'm very glad I ended on Linguriboh in this particular situation, though, because my opponent did end up being a Labyrinth opponent, so, you know, by setting this card during their end phase, like, yeah, they get to use it. They set it with the Shayna Dragolier, yeah. Normally they'd be able to get to use it, but, well, I mean, they could use it, but I have the Linguriboh, so I threatened to negate it with this. So in this actually very specific situation, it was fine for me to end on Linguriboh, but normally I would like to be ripping cards to the opponent's hand on turn 1. So yeah, we get the Heatsoul draw. We've got the Maxx online now as well. I'm not really too familiar with Unchained. It's definitely like, they're one of those decks that I can kind of count on one hand the number of times I've played against them. So, yeah, that said, like, I'm really just looking out for effects like, you know, destroying a card on the field. I obviously don't want to lose my face down Superfactorial, so yeah, I'll go ahead and negate that. And then just move to battle phase after that. So, I'll let them destroy my Linguriboh. That's fine. I don't really care that much. Should just summon, honestly, should just summon the Alembertain in response, and I think about, oh, but you know what, I didn't have enough Mathmechs engraved to do it, did I? No, because I only have 2 Mathmechs engraved, that's the problem. Yeah, that's the other way I kind of misplayed as well. I didn't set up a third one engraved for the Superfactorial. Again, you'll just have to forgive that for this video, as these games were still when I was, like, very much learning the deck. But, you know, the deck, honestly, especially when it comes to, like, following up on turn 3, or if you're going second on your first turn, getting the win, it's a lot like Salamangreats and a lot of other Cyberse decks in that regard, where it's pretty easy, actually. All you have to really do is make sure that you've got the way clear to go for, like, Update Jammer into access code, and then you're good to go. This deck even provides a good variety of attributes for Link monsters in Graveyard to pop a lot of stuff with access code. Like, it's not uncommon to, like, use Update Jammer to make access code and be able to pop, like, 3 or 4 cards, and then it's swing for lethal by attacking directly. I really like the Cyberse decks for that reason, actually. I just really like having access to Update Jammer. It feels like a cheat code. It really feels like a cheat code of, like, you know, it feels like I don't even have to, like, really think about how I'm going to end the game. I'm like, oh, I can just go into the Update Jammer. I mean, like, here, for example, right, you know, I've already got the Link Disciple in play, so I already have a Link 2 in play. And then if you look at my graveyard, I've got, you know, Fire, Dark, Earth, and then Wind from Update Jammer. I could have even Splash Mage for Water if I really wanted to, so... But, you know, I only need to pop 4 cards. This face down card isn't live this turn, so... Once I get rid of all the monsters, I can just swing for lethal. Easy peasy, don't have to think too much about it. Yeah, at this point I'm just going to fast forward, popping through all their cards, because that's all we're going to do here. I was kind of surprised this Unchained didn't actually do something when it got destroyed, because I know that's kind of what their whole thing is, so... Like, I didn't know this archetype very well, like I said, so when this was on the board, I was like, I read that effect like 3 times over, just looking for a drawback to me destroying it, and I didn't see one, so I was like, okay, I think I'm in the clear, and I was, so there's that game. Now let's just go ahead and move on to the next one. Alright, in this duel, we're going to be playing against Runic. It is a pure variant, running the Amato Iwatos and some Floodgates, so... Yeah, I like to show off games that I have against Runic, especially going second if possible. Although, from what I remember, they actually don't get a fountain off from this game, so it wasn't quite as scary as it could be. Yeah, opponent's going to start off with a Duality, revealing a couple of Runic spells in the Amano. I'm like, alright, I pretty much know what I'm in for at this point. Or so I think, but then they actually set 4 cards before passing. I was rather surprised they didn't use the Destruction to try to go for a Hugin for a fountain, but they must not have had another quick play spell, I guess, is my guess there, so. I'm going to start off with the Subtraction for a Linguriboh. That's going to be the first thing I go into. I want this online just in case my opponent ends up with a face-down Floodgate card. Like, I don't want Skill Drain or their Killing Bee 1 to ruin my day here, so. Even though, you know, Runics are famous for quick play spell cards, they do still run, as we all know, trap cards as well, so they're definitely going to be, just firing off this Linguriboh here. The Maxx in response to the Crossout Designator looks a little bit weird, but because I'm using it to call Maxx, I'm going to use it in response to the Crossout Designator because I know my opponent is likely at some point during the turn going to summon a Runic monster with this Runic Destruction. So, you know, one of 2 things happens, right? I either force them to do it at not necessarily an awkward moment, but not an ideal moment, or they don't do it and I get a draw later in the turn with Maxx. Either way, since I'm going second, I'm planning on trying to end this duel on this turn with the access code anyway, so I'm not concerned about saving the Maxx for a potential future turn. I'm just going to kind of focus my resources onto this turn. I also want to end the duel on this turn because I know the more time I give my opponent, the more likely they are to draw a fountain, you know, and a floodgate, something that's really going to mess me up, so... yeah, I'm just gonna, like I said, just go for this as soon as possible here. And also the other thing too is I can go for the full access code line without having to use the Linguriboh, so I can keep this up in case my opponent tries to flip up like a skill drain or something in the middle of my combo. Or at least that would be the case if my, you know, Splash Mage didn't get negated by freezing curses here, but yeah, at this point I was gonna say I was pretty sure my opponent didn't have it, the Floodgate, because they weren't really playing it anyway. The Munin, by the way, Munin does nothing there. You might think like, well, wait, once you target Munin with access code, don't you just, like, does it just get negated and destroyed? Well, no. Well, I guess one, even if access code did target, you can't respond to its effects, but access code does not target. It doesn't target, so you don't have to worry about effects with target protection. Like if you look, well, I can't show you actually because I didn't summon it, but Because I actually had a comment recently, because I said this in a video once, I had a comment recently say, no, access code targets, you just can't respond to it. No, look at, like, read the text of access code. The word target is not on it, so don't have to worry about target protection there. Let's see, we've got time. Yeah, we got time for one more video, so let's just go into, one more duel for this video. So let's just jump straight into it. And our final duel for this video is going to be against a Numeron deck this time around. Yeah, I was pretty sure once they gave me the first turn... Actually, I was pretty sure it was going to be Sky Strikers. I haven't come across nearly as many Sky Strikers as I was expecting, which is very surprising to me. I do think Mathmech is probably the more powerful deck between the two, honestly, which I didn't really expect to say that. I thought they were going to be, like, you know, about on par around tier 3, but I really do think Mathmech has potential to be a higher tier than even that, so... yeah, I think Mathmech might be a slightly more powerful deck, but still, I was expecting to see more Sky Strikers than I have been. Of course, that could just be variance, right? Like, I could just be the one, you know, not seeing any Sky Strikers here. So this game is also going to be a good example. Well, it's kind of a good example of, like, this deck's ability to play through a bunch of responses, but at the same time, like, I also opened, like, a ridiculous hand. If we actually take a look at my opening hand, yeah, I mean, Circular plus Addition and Subtraction and Primal Exceed and Ash. This is the definition of a do-whatever-you-want hand with this deck. I literally opened my starter, Circular, all my extenders, the Subtraction Addition and Primal Exceed, and I had the Ash Blossom for the Maxi as well. Yeah, this is definition of a do-whatever-you-want hand with this deck. Like, just make whatever plays you want. The play that I'm going to ultimately end up making is I'm going to start ripping cards from my opponent's hand on turn 1 with the... Not Alembertain, the other one, Laplacian. If that's how you say that. You'll have to forgive me if it's not. Math was always my worst subject in school. You know, I say, but, you know, I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh player, so I can't really read either. So I guess I just am dumb. I don't know. I don't know. But, yeah, no, I'm definitely not privy to whatever mathematical terms names like Alembertain and Laplacian are referring to, so... Hey, speaking of Laplacian, like I said, we're going to go ahead and make them here and start tearing cards out of our opponent's hand. Then we even get to do it on the next turn, too, with the Superfactorial. Yeah, ripping Lava Golem is going to confirm that this is actually not a Sky Striker, but a Numeron deck. As soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, it's not Sky Striker. Not that Sky Strikers, like, never play Kaijus or anything, but, like, it's pretty rare for them to play a Kaiju. Even then, they have an Archetype one, which is, like, kind of mad, but even then, you don't typically use Lava Golem as your, like, one of Kaiju. It's usually Gamma Seal, or, again, Sky Strikers do have the Surgical Striker Hamp as well. Oh, yeah, so my opponent ended up having, like, one card left in hand, which I am going to assume was the Numeron network. But yeah, as soon as they imperm the IP Masquerena, I'm like, that's fine, I don't care, you've got one card left, I'm taking it out of your hand, and they can see before I even get the chance to do that, so... There are those games. Now let's go ahead and move on to the outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating. that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.